The Toronto Blue Jays are showcasing a secret weapon in the Arizona Fall League, and this guy, who has had some injury history in the past, who is a bit of an older prospect, may come out of the woodwork and be an instant contributor for the Toronto Blue Jays. So we'll break that down and much more on this episode of Jays Digest. Welcome in everybody to Jays Digest. I'm your host Peter Vryonis, alongside host Nick Gosse. And Nick, we're starting to find maybe some diamonds in the rough here for the Toronto Blue Jays, or some silver linings for the offseason heading into next year, because as we all know, the season did not go too well, and game one of the World Series was yesterday. And I don't know how you feel about it, Nick, but watching those two teams go at it, the Blue Jays are nowhere near that level as of yet. Maybe they could make some moves in the offseason and get better and get closer to be able to compete with those teams. But right now, the Yankees and Dodgers, that is like a clash of the Titans. That is like two superheroes going at it. And the Toronto Blue Jays are just kind of in the corner watching and trying to emulate and be like those teams, but they're nowhere close to that level. But maybe if they can pan out some prospects like this guy that we're going to talk about right here, and maybe if some of those prospects turn into stars or unheralded role players at the big league level, maybe that'll propel the Blue Jays back into contention. But this guy, he's making a good case for that, and he's getting better and better despite being an older prospect.
Yeah, and this is a guy that we've touched on, I think, briefly. But yeah, looking at yesterday's World Series game, it's a joy to watch. But like you mentioned, the Jays are nowhere near at this point the level that either of those teams are. But in the Arizona Fall League, we have some interesting things going on. So Blue Jays prospect continuing his comeback season in the Arizona Fall League, and that is Lazaro Estrada. Now, if you're unfamiliar with him, we'll kind of give you a bit of a deep dive into this guy. Peter, he's an older prospect, and that's the reason that the Jays at this point, their starting depth for next season and beyond is still a little bit in question. But despite the World Series going on, the annual Arizona Fall League, where MLB prospects get one last taste of high-level competition, is underway right now. And of course, Estrada, a right-handed pitcher who fans haven't heard much about. He's 25 years old. He recently renewed his contract for 2 years, so you don't have to worry about that. According to Jay's Journal, he's our number 17th ranked prospect. And Peter, he threw almost 100 innings across 3 levels this past season, and he soared through high A and single A, all these different things. A 3.29 ERA with 113 strikeouts. That was before heading into the Arizona Fall League. And now, of course, he's going to be making his appearance in the Arizona Fall League. And it's intriguing for the fact that he's 25 years old and the Jays desperately need some more starting prospects to actually work out. Now, he's still technically a prospect, even though an older one. They have guys like Ricky Tiedemann, Brandon Barriera. I mean, Jake Bloss is probably one who's coming up as well. But if they don't want to rush those guys, I could see Lazaro Estrada really factor into this team as soon as next year, given his age. And depending what happens after next season with Kevin Gausman and Chris Bassett coming off the books and aging, the rotation, aside from José Berríos and a couple other guys, really, mainly just José Berríos, is there's some spots up for grabs there. And this guy had a very good, underrated minor league season last year.
Yeah, and the fact that he's been able to stay healthy is something that we can't say about many of the prospects in the Blue Jays system right now. So if we take a look at his Arizona Fall League numbers right now, he's got 8 2/3 innings pitched, a 4.15 ERA. You're probably telling me, all right, Pete, what are you looking at here? Well, I see 14 strikeouts. I see swing and miss
Yep.
ability here from Lazaro Estrada, and the fact that he was able to log close to 100 innings on this season. I mean, that's big. And who knows if he's going to be a starter at the next level, if he's going to be able to be close to that 150 to 200 mark. But like we touched on, he's going to be 26 once the next season rolls around. So there isn't much time here. It could be a late bloomer. He is a Cuban guy, so obviously those guys tend to come in a little bit later than other prospects because of the visa issues and whatnot. So maybe that had something to do with it, and that's been well documented in Estrada's case. But he's probably going to get a look here pretty soon because he's been in the system now for a while. He is a more veteran prospect, like we say, and he's shown flashes of, I wouldn't say brilliance, but just consistency. The fact that he can stay on the mound and the fact that he's been improving year after year with the strikeout rate, I think that's enticing to me if I'm the Blue Jays front office. And like you mentioned, Nick, the uncertainty surrounding Chris Bassett. not Jose Barrios, but Chris Bassett, Kevin Gosman, other guys like Yariel Rodriguez going forward. You don't know how many more years you have of having a solid rotation of filled of guys that can log 150 to 200 innings for you. So there's going to be some question marks in the near future, and maybe Lazaro Estrada is the answer to one of those question marks because he's looked solid, he's been able to stay healthy, and in the Blue Jays farm system, that is pretty much the perfect prospect if you could stay on the field. There aren't too many guys that stay healthy that are heralded as top prospects, and this guy isn't heralded as a top prospect, but I'm sure it won't take long for him to break into the top 30 or even the top 20 of the Blue Jays' top farm system pieces.
Yeah, and MLB Pipeline doesn't have him in the top 30, but Jay's Journal, so depending on which ones, does have him number 17. And one note about the 4.15 ERA that you mentioned, 3 of those 4 runs came in his last outing on October 23rd. So before that, he was looking at whatever it was, 6 innings with 1 run. And again, he showed off his swing and miss stuff, logging 14 strikeouts, easily leading the Scorpion staff and topping all pitchers in the AFL. He also only has a 1.04 whip. He's limited his walks, a 188 batting average. Like, he is dominating, not dominating in the sense of ERA necessarily, but when it comes to stuff you're looking for out of a prospect, the results don't matter too much right now unless he's giving up 8 or 9 runs. And he is doing absolutely phenomenal down there. And he's not factoring into the top 30 prospects on MLB Pipeline, but what he is doing is factoring into some other equations. And again, depending on what prospect rankings you list, Jays Journal has him number 17, so whoever you want to go at. But when you're looking at the Jays prospect system, I mean, obviously the recently drafted Trey Savage is their number 1 prospect. And that was a great pick so far. He's 21 years old. His ETA is not for a couple of years. You have other starting pitchers, number 3 and 4 in the system, Ricky Tiedemann and Jake Bloss. Tiedemann, of course, dealing with Tommy John surgery. He's out till 2026. Jake Bloss is the most MLB-ready prospect, and I do suspect we'll see him next season for the Blue Jays. But other than that, the starting pitching staff is looking a little bit bleak, mainly due to injuries. And you look here, you don't see Brandon Barriera anywhere in this list, and he was their number, I think, 3 or 4 prospect at this time last season.
Yeah, and another name that we have to mention on that list is Landon Marutis as well, who is dealing with some injuries in his own right. So a lot of the top pitching prospects on the Blue Jays are just not able to stay healthy, and that is a big issue. That is a big problem. And the one thing I find interesting here with Estrada is the fact that he hasn't started a game in the Arizona Fall League. So um, maybe that's not really something to read into because the Arizona Fall League is more so of a showcase as opposed to a development type of thing. Like you don't see guys really pitch like 7 innings at a time. So
No.
maybe it's not that big of a deal. But if Estrada can maybe be a bullpen piece for the Blue Jays before he can be a starting rotation caliber pitcher, I think that's something to look out for as well because starters take longer to develop. We know that. But if you have good stuff, if you have strikeout stuff like Estrada clearly does against minor league hitters, then you give yourself a chance to maybe make your debut a little bit sooner than you would have you just been an out and out starter. So that's something to look out for too, because not only is the rotation an area of concern going forward, the bullpen for the Blue Jays right now is a huge concern for them. So I think Estrada can definitely be a guy to look out for in the next year or two if he keeps pitching the way that he has, and if he shows the ability to come out of the bullpen and get outs in high leverage situations.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of question marks going forward for this team, and whether these prospects factor into the starting rotation or bullpen is still yet to be seen, but it's going to be a huge year for the Blue Jays prospect pool as well as their free agency because as the World Series comes to an end, that's when that's going to start to keep up. We're going to keep you up to date with all the latest news. So make sure to hit the subscribe button. Let us know down below what your thoughts are. We'll see you tomorrow.